Hello, Garland. Nixon here. And there are signs appearing that the Trump administration may be backing down from attacking Venezuela. That's a good thing if it's true. Let's talk. Hello, all. Let me find got a couple of things we need to talk about. Let's see. There's a couple of things going on. It is my opinion that the Trump administration is, I think, backing down. Let me find it. From this whole regime change in Iran thing. We got a couple of things. I don't know what the hell's going on here. Here we go. There are a couple of things going on. Do we have anybody in the? Nobody watching so far, but that's okay. We got a few viewers, 65 and climbing. But I just came on all of a sudden. All right. So what's happening? What do we have? I have been a person I've been talking about this, and of course, did I say Iran? Venezuela. Oh, okay. I might have said Iran. I meant Venezuela. Somebody said Iran. You meant Venezuela. Yeah, of course, absolutely. There is the for God's sake, there's so many countries we're thinking about attacking. I get them all confused. So let's get to it. So for a while, people have been asking me, particularly about Venezuela, because of my experience of being, going there, of meeting with the opposition, of meeting with people there, meeting with people, in the mountains and the towns all over, with people who support President Maduro, who don't, etc. Okay. And a couple of things. And now we're starting to see the truth about this matter, that I believe there is an internal conversation about whether or not to attack Venezuela. And I believe that Donald Trump may be backing down. There's signs there. And we're going to discuss them. Why don't we start here? Why don't we start with the news that we have, and we'll go from there, and how that plays into it. If I can figure out even how to work this friggin' thing that I work every day, my brain's done. Let's go here. U.S. National Intelligence Director says former American strategy of regime change is over. This is Tulsi Gabbard. This is yesterday. Dubai. The U.S. National Intelligence Director told officials Friday, right, that America's former strategy of regime change or nation building has ended under President Trump. Her comments come before the Manama Dialogue, an annual security summit in Bahrain, blah, blah, blah. For decades, our foreign policy has been trapped in a counterproductive and endless cycle of regime change or nation building, said Gabbard. It was a one-size-fits-all approach of toppling regimes, trying to impose our system of governments on others, intervene in conflicts that were barely understood, and walk away with more enemies than allies. So let me start by addressing that and telling you what I think. One of the things that I've discussed is the issue of factional fighting. You go back to feudalism, the noble classes, the families of nobility fought amongst each other. You had wars with the class, the nobility, people in power would fight amongst each other. And then you had what was called Bonapartism, which is you've got a bunch of rich factions, and then they have to get the working class or the poor people to ally with various factions of the ruling elite to fight each other. Okay, here's my point. My point has been there's factional fighting inside the Trump regime, right? And I'm not saying there's good guys and bad guys. I'm saying factional fighting that says we want to attack, we want to go to war with Russia. No, we want to go to war with China. No, we want to go to war with Iran. No, we want to go to war with Venezuela, right? And the discussion recently has been Marco Rubio and the South Florida, fascists from South America and the Caribbean and all of the Cuba and all of these fascists that just want to overthrow various countries, help the United States steal their resources, and then to be restored to all of their power and glory in whatever country they come from in South America. There, Rubio represents them, and this was a Rubio game. Rubio, we've got to take out Venezuela and Cuba, which means that his faction seemed to have won. So now they get there and they confront. They got everything in place, right? They got chips in place. They got planes in place. They got all of these things in place to make this the decision to we're going to attack Venezuela. But let's remember something. In his book, whatever it was called, I forgot what John Bolton's book was, but in that book, he did say, yeah, we've got all the way up to just about attacking Iran, which is maybe why I said Iran in the beginning. He got all the way up to attacking Iran, Trump, and then he backed down. And then he's like, oh, no. And of course, to John Bolton, he said, that's the most bizarre thing any president has done. We were right there. We had our war and he wouldn't do it. Okay. So it ain't above Trump to step all the way up to the line and to back down. And we've all did it in our lives. We've all been in our lives places where we went, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And you got right up to there where you had to pull a trigger. You had to make the decision. You're like, I can't do this. This is too big a deal. I'm going to chill, right? Nah, I think I won't. We've all done that, right? Trump seems like the type that talks a lot of trash and he's got a lot of bravado, but he's very hesitant to pull the trigger, right? And I did have a feeling in the back of my mind all along, because one thing I've been talking about is, boy, the potential for this to go bad. And if it goes bad, that is it for President Trump's presidency. If he pulls the trigger on this, and what happens if, as Andre Martianov said, a couple of them Su-30s come flying out and unleash some freaking nasty anti-ship missiles, and a couple of Americans, Arleigh Burke class destroyers. What happens if a major ship or a major naval asset gets sunk, right? What happens if you lose a lot of soldiers? What happens if you get in here? Now you're in the jungle, in the mountains. Are you going to put soldiers on the ground? They're going to fight. Oh, you're asking for trouble with a country this size and with this population and with a people that support their government. And you could bullcrap the American people and say the Venezuelans don't support their government, but those of us who've been there know they do, and they're going to fight. They're going to fight you if you go in there. Those people are going to fight. And I've always felt, and a lot of people have said, one of the reasons that the U.S. wouldn't attack Venezuela is because they know, well, we may be able to defeat their military to some extent. Well, you get in that country, it's Vietnam on steroids. It's three times the size of Venezuela of Vietnam, easily minimum, right? So do you really want to get into that? But at any rate, so I felt for a long time it's possible that Trump may back out. And we saw one of these generals that said, hey, I ain't in it and I'm quitting. Right. My name is Bennett and I ain't in it, as they say. We've seen a general resign, which tells me that you've got an element in the Pentagon that's saying, man, do we really want to end up sending ourselves in the snake bit freaking jungles with do we really want to do this? Is this what we're trying to do? Send our troops in, now they've got 18,000 soldiers. Do we really want to try to attack a country the size of France and Germany combined with 18,000 soldiers? Probably not a good idea. They got at least 100,000 soldiers, but they got millions of people armed in their militia. The people will fight you. Nah, you invade Venezuela. And how are you going to do it? You're going to come ashore and they're going to be sitting there ashore waiting to light your ass up. Your ships are going to get shot at. It's just would be a disaster to try to do some kind of an amphibious landing. What happens if they're waiting for you? What happens if the Russians and Chinese are giving them all the intelligence? Well, there we go. Here's the coordinates. They're coming ashore right now. And they're just sitting there. No, you don't want to do that. So my point is, this has the potential to destroy Donald Trump's presidency. Okay, so the fact that Tulsi Gabbard has come out and basically said the days of regime change are over. Here's what I hear in that. Maybe I'm wrong. This is just speculation. They could be bombing Venezuela right now as I talk, but I'm speculating here. Let's do this. It's like an announcement. Let me give you a couple options. What option one What Tulsi Gabbard is saying is my faction, who's saying we don't want another regime change war, has won, and I'm making the announcement. I'm going to make the announcement. I've talked to Trump. We've all talked. We've had our internal discussions. We've said, do this, do that. I've said, here's the evidence I got. Here's what the intelligence that I got. And I would suspect, in all likelihood, that Tulsi Gabbard's 100% behind it. You might have people saying to Donald Trump, if you go in here, I resign. I don't know that she is or not. Let's face it. When things were going on in Gaza, people were mad. When they attacked Iran, they were saying Tulsi should resign. I would say this. I understand people saying that. On the other side, I understand Tulsi staying, because if, in fact, she is opposed to regime change, then having an anti-regime change, anti-war voice in the cabinet ain't all that bad a thing. Okay. But so we don't know. But my point being, the fact that she made this, I'm going to give you two options. Option one is an announcement saying my faction won, the faction that I am a part of won. Now, as I said, there could be some people saying, let's not attack them because we need our resources for China. I don't know, and I don't care. Right? I'm just saying, it appears to me that a faction has possibly announced victory. Nah, it's not happening. Tulsi Gabbard's gate. Now, there's another. So that's one option. We don't know what it is. We're speculating here. Let me give you another option. Another option is it's a way to kind of box Trump into the corner by that faction. Because if Tulsi comes out and says, we're not doing regime change, those regime change is over, and everybody knows it's a regime change war, it makes it difficult for Trump to then come out and say, my national DNI said no more regime change wars. We're sick of that. People didn't want it. Donald Trump said was not going to do it, and he's not going to do it. It kind of boxes Trump into a corner. So what does he do the next day? All right, officially launch the regime change war. So one option could be an announcement that a decision has been made not to do it. And as I said, all along, Trump is slow to pull the trigger. Trump doesn't want him. So far, if you think about it, he didn't attack Iran. They talked to the Iranians and said, hey, how about we drop a couple bombs in the middle of nowhere, and you don't even turn on your air defense system. Let's not forget, the Iranians didn't even turn on their air defense systems. They just let them fly over and bomb that area. And then the Iranians fired some missiles into a base or something, and everybody said, hey, we won, right? It was a faux attack. It was an agreed dance. Hey, you step to the right, I'll spin and step to the left. They were doing the conga dance, right? Now, my point being, so Trump didn't attack Iran. He backed down a second time. I'm not going to do it. He wouldn't pull the trigger on that one, right? That's twice. Trump, where he engaged with Yemen, and when Yemen started getting in some punches, Trump could have said, that's it, we'll fix them. He kind of disengaged from that. Trump is hesitant to dive into a war. He's hesitant to do that. For all of the negative things I could say about Trump, and you could say about Trump, true. I'm with you. I'm no fan of Trump by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just calling him as I see him, right? From a historical concept, if you look at his first term and this term, he's hesitant to start his own war. I'm going to dive in and start my own war. He's hesitant to do that. Whether he will or not, maybe he will wake up tomorrow and do it. So far, he's been hesitant. And I think that whatever faction would be saying don't do it, I think either Tulsi's saying my faction won, it ain't happening, or she's putting pressure on Trump saying we're not going to do it, which makes it harder for Trump to do it. Now, add this. Yesterday, Trump, and let's see if we can find this. So I don't just like to say Trump. Venezuela, no. Let me search that out. Okay, Reuters. Let's look at this. These are things to take into account. We don't know, but we're working here. We're speculating. I don't know for sure. Neither do you. So let's see what we got. Trump says he is not considering strikes within Venezuela. President Trump on Friday denied he was considering strikes inside Venezuela, appearing to contradict his own comments from last week and amid intensifying expectations that Washington may soon expand. See, so last week Trump said, yeah, they're going to get it. And now Trump said, nah. The United States has built up a large military presence, blah, 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 blah. On Friday, when asked by reporters on Air Force One if media reports that he was considering strikes on Venezuela was true, he said no, no. Right? Remember last week when they asked him about boats, he said the land is going to be next. So what are we looking at now? This is another piece of evidence to consider, and that's this: Trump basically said, yes, we're going to attack them. The land is going to be next. And then Friday, so during the week, Trump says, they ask him, well, you're hitting boats. Is the land going to be next? Yep. Now, a couple of days later, they say, oh, so you understand you're making strikes on Venezuela? No, no, no. That is clearly either he's lying, which is possible, or it is a reversal to say, nah, let me ad lib it. We talked. The various information has been given to me, and I've decided not to make a move. Now, what do we know? We have had reports, credible reports, that some Russian plane or planes have landed in Venezuela. We don't know for sure. We have heard that Wagner Group, or what used to be Wagner Group, is there. So basically, what we're hearing, what is out in the ether is, hey, the Russians may be in Venezuela. Now, keep in mind something. There are things that the Russians can provide that, but we already know they have some S-300s. They've got some Buks, which is very, very good close support, close in anti-aircraft system, air defense system. They've got man pads. They got other things. They've got some air defense. It's a huge country. F-35, let's say it's going to hit a target inside Venezuela, and it flies for an hour and a half inside of Venezuela, and all of a sudden, S-300s come on around it. You ain't getting out alive. Not getting out alive. You're done. You got an hour and a half to get out. And this is a big country. You don't just fly over to the coast and bomb and leave. Number one. So you are putting your planes and your ships in great jeopardy. So I would imagine he's had intelligence and defense that have briefed him and said, okay, best case scenario, this is what happens. Worst case scenario, Vietnam is going to look like a happy place compared to this. And it's possible that what Tulsi Gabbard is doing is announcing we ain't going to do it, we won, or making it harder for Trump to do it. Those are two possibilities. Now, let me do another thing. And this is something that I learned in Venezuela, meeting with the opposition, right? Watch this. Watch this. Now, if you've been listening to me, you know I said this because I've been to Venezuela and I've met with opposition parties in Caracas. I've met with opposition parties personally, okay, with other people. Okay, look at this. Venezuela opposition split over possible U.S. action, right? Let's look at it. Two main leaders of Venezuela's opposition are increasingly divided over looming U.S. actions targeting the country, right? Even as a crackdown against the opposition, that's bullshit. Okay, where are we? You've got one group, okay, led by Maria Corina Machado, has aligned closely with Trump, arguing Maduro, blah, blah, blah. Another led by former candidate Henrique Capriles, rejects armed U.S. intervention and advocates renewed talks with Maduro's government and Trump, despite limited success in previous talks. The splintering amid a years-long government crackdown on the opposition, blah, blah, leaves many supporters at home and abroad at a loss. Now, you'll remember Garland Nixon, a man who has been there and met with the members of the opposition figure. I sat in rooms with them. I think Margaret Flowers might have been there. A few other people were there. Here's what I recall them saying. The opposition that we met with, right? The people that we met with were more conservative, right-wing opposition figures. And their position was, hey, we don't like Maduro, but we accept that he won. And I couldn't, I'm not aligned with them ideologically, but I am aligned with them from a moral perspective. Let me tell you why. What they said to us, those who were meeting with them, they said, look, we believe in what we believe in, and we're willing to make our play, that we're willing to make our move politically and just use the political structures that we have and to try to convince people to vote for us, and hopefully we'll win. These sanctions are hurting us. We don't want the sanctions, even though we're the opposition, and we don't want any war or intervention. They were somewhat nationalist, but they were conservative, and it'd be like somebody having a party here and saying, well, we're not going to win. I'm in fill in the blank. We're in the Green Party, whatever party, right? I'm in the so-and-so party in the US. Now, I just want to try to make a move, and we're going to run our candidate and we're going to try to win. But we don't want nobody to come and overthrow the United States. No, we're going to operate within the structure that we have, right? Okay. So here's my point. Let's go back to the numbers as I understand them, and I'll put them in based on my experience. And this is an approximation as I see it. Let's do this. This is the approximation as best I can. I'll say 64% would be Chavistas, Hugo Chavez. They're going to support Maduro. They see Maduro as symbolic of their revolution against the damn gringos. Okay, that's 64%. Let's just do this. I'm going to give the opposition the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give them numbers they don't even deserve, but we're speculating, so I'm going to play fast and loose with the numbers and give the opposition as much room as I can. 64%, we're going to say Chavistas supporting Maduro. That's why he wins every time. That's why the Chavistas win every time. Let's just say there's another 6% that are the actual Communist Party and their supporters. And those are people who are to the left of Maduro. And they're like, no, you're not going far enough. We are really out for fighting back, and we want to be a full-fledged Communist Party. We don't want socialism. We don't want to use the word. So we are the Communist Party, and they are the hardcore Communist Party, right? We don't want to use the word socialism. We want to say the Communist Party of Venezuela runs things. Okay, so they see him as too far to the right and too friendly with the neoliberals. So you got 64% Chavistas, you got 6% that's to the left of the Chavistas, but if the gringos invade, they're fighting with the Chavistas harder than the Chavistas. You can believe that. So you got another 30%. We're going to give that to the opposition. But what we're seeing of that opposition is, and I'm going to be charitable to the US puppets, 15% of the opposition is opposed to US intervention. 15% of the opposition is in favor. You see what I'm saying? They consider those the extremists. Let me see if I can find this. I think they've got here. Listen to this. Capriles, who says Machado's faction is extremist, told Reuters he is determined to fight for change. The fight, despite being denounced as a sellout by some in the opposition, right? Who said taking part, listen to this. Capriles, that's the other part of the opposition, right? Capriles, who says Machado's faction is extremist, told Reuters he's determined to fight for change. Listen to this. Despite being denounced as a sellout by some in the opposition who say taking part in the legislative election rewarded Maduro for clinging to power. What are they saying? The Juan Guaido Machado extremist faction said to Capriles and their faction of the opposition don't even be a part of the election. But Capriles is part of that opposition that I met with that said, we're going to run. Remember, the U.S. said, don't run. Don't run. If you run in the election, you're just giving validation to the election. Don't run. We need to overthrow the government. And that faction of the opposition said, no, we believe that we can convince the people of Venezuela to vote for us, and we're going to take part of the democratic process, right? So the Capriles faction, the people that I met with, are like, look, we just want to try to win this thing. I don't agree with them ideologically, but that's reasonable, right? So we're seeing now they're saying that fight out. Remember, they said he was denounced as a sellout by some in the opposition who said, why? Why was it? Who said taking part in the legislative election rewarded Maduro. Why? Because the United States said to the opposition, don't run anybody, don't take part in the election. And the Capriles people said, No, 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 no. We're going to run. Don't tell us not to run. We're going to run. We think we can win this thing. Well, they can't. But you got to respect them for saying, we'll run and see if we win. And if we lose, we lose. That's okay. That's democracy, right? So what do we have now? So what are we left with? Trying to overthrow a government where 64% of the people are going to fight you. Where the other 6%, even though they're not in favor of Maduro, they're to the left of Maduro, are going to fight you even harder. That's 70% of the country. Where another 15% of the so-called opposition, because you got 30% left, don't want you coming in attacking their country. All you got left is that 15%. And let me tell you about Venezuela. Those people are friggin' armed. I keep saying those people are friggin' armed. They're armed with AK-47s, with machine guns, with stuff. Here's what I believe. That people have said, okay, there'll be a civil war. Well, not exactly. If 15% of the people are selling the country out and calling in for airstrikes and saying, we want to overthrow our government using the US. If there is a battle, well, could we call this a civil war? You got 15% of the opposition that's going to sit on the side and say, we ain't in this fight. We don't want this fight. So you got 70% who's ready to fight like hell and 15% who are in favor of the U.S. intervention, the U.S. regime change attack. That's a bit of a lopsided fight. Oh, by the way, the opposition ain't armed. The Maduro people, the Chavistas, are armed to the friggin' teeth. So if in fact there were a civil war, let's see, let's run this by. Who would win? Who would win in this civil war? Let's try to see if we can figure out who would win. 15% of the country who ain't friggin' armed. 70% of the country who's armed to the damn teeth and ready to fight. I wonder who would win that one in a civil war. I don't know. See, this idea, if you think about it, even American conservatives, people should be able to have our guns and we should be able to have our guns. Well, the Venezuelan government seems to feel that way too. They're like, yeah, you're right. Here, citizens, you can have not just guns, AK-47s, machine guns. They're arming them for war. Now, I have to always say this. Oh, really? The people hate the government? Why would a government who's hated by the people arm the people? Wouldn't they turn it on the government? Isn't it kind of strange that Maduro's arming these friggin' people to the teeth and they don't point the gun back at him? Isn't that, shall we say, prima facie evidence that it ain't him they hate? That if the gringos come walking around, the guns are going to come around and point at the gringos. They're going to fight on behalf of Maduro. So my point is, we've got a couple of bits of evidence here. We got Trump doing a 180, which, you know, Trump will do a 180 within 5 minutes. He'll say something and 5 minutes later, he'll say, I didn't say what? Oh, what did I say? So-and-so is a dictator? Nah, I don't remember saying that. I don't know what you're talking about. So that's Trump. That if you're looking for consistency with Trump, you're barking up the wrong tree. So rather than say he's inconsistent, just ride with it and see what it means. See what it says, right? And so, as I said, I don't know. Trump could just, before this video is over, attack Venezuela. I don't know. This is speculation. But from a person who's been there, who can give you some evidence based on actual what I saw in Venezuela, who I talked to, and what I dealt with, it seems to me that Trump is doing what in fact, over the last week, I've been kind of saying, it won't surprise me if Trump backs down. I don't know if he's going to do this. I'm not sure. It looks like it. Everybody's, what he's going to do? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. It's the potential to end his presidency. You're going to start a war in your region. You're going to have, I mean, he's done if he does that. You start a war in that region. What happens? Oh, how's it working out? Well, we got millions of people from all over South America showing up at the border. This is their opportunity. Oh boy, we've got unrest in the region. Whoosh. Millions at the border. How's Trump going to? And everybody will say, oh shit, Trump, your war did this. We got millions of people at our border. And he won't be able to run from that one. Will he? So that would be disastrous for Trump. Body bags coming home, disastrous for Trump. How do you back out of it? Disastrous for Trump. What happens if you're losing the war? Disastrous for Trump. It's Like Joe Gibbs with the old Redskins used to say when they're like, how come you don't operate the quarterback out of the shotgun? He says, well, there's 5 things that can happen and 4 of them are bad, right? Play any odds. You do this, Trump, there's 10 things that could happen and 9.5 of them are bad. So I think that, here's my guess. I'm going to leave it at this. My guess is they kicked it around. Gabbard presented him with information. Maybe other people presented with the information about what's happening here and what the potentialities are. That maybe there are people in the military, because we've already had this one guy resign, threatening to resign. Yeah, if you do this, I'll go bad. I mean, I'm out of here. Maybe you have people in the administration saying that. J.D. Vance, for all of his being a Palantir puppet, I don't know that J.D. Vance, he hasn't been talking a lot. I don't know that he wants this. I think this is Rubio's baby. I really think this is Rubio's baby. And that my guess now is Rubio lost. That's all. Somebody said, I don't think Trump is making the calls on this one. Maybe you're right. I don't know. But whoever's making the calls on this one, whoever is, I think they lost. I think they lost. Maybe let's see what happens over the weekend. Let's see what happens if we start seeing ships back away, because they set everything up. They got into starting. They were all in the starting blocks, ready to run, and all you needed to do was fire the blank gun, and they could take off. I don't know. And somebody said J.D. Vance is a neocon just like the rest. I agree with you, but I'm saying if you got to understand, what did I say in the beginning? I said, look, it may very well be that one neocon faction one after another, that one neocon faction says we got to attack them, and the other neocon faction said, no, we got to save all this stuff so we can attack China. No, we got to save all this stuff so we can attack Russia. No, we got to save it so we can attack Iran. That it isn't that some peacenik, that there weren't a bunch of doves standing around saying, oh, it would be wrong to go to war, that they are fighting over which war to fight next. That's more my thoughts at any rate. So that's where I am. Let's look and see. Do we have any super chats? Do we have any super chats? Do we got? I think I saw one. And here we go. Black in the Empire, at Black in the Empire. This is Juan Guaido, the real president of Venezuela. Hilarious. Oh, Black in the Empire is great. Oh, awesome on Twitter. Awesome. One of my favorite Twitter accounts when I used to be on Twitter. At any rate, let's see, is there anything else? All right, that's it. That's where we are. All right. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. I certainly appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy Saturday morning. That's all I really have to say. Let me do a quick look right now. I'll look around on before I go, Telegram and stuff like that, and see if there's any breaking news. Venezuela. Any breaking news? Here's one. U.S. National Intelligence Director. So people are talking about Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah. I don't see. Yes, then the U.S. has deployed, somebody saying, a massive naval force near Venezuela, 16,000 troops, 8 warships, and a nuclear submarine. The U.S. Gerald Ford, that's on its way. Still, okay, all right. A massive naval force. Well, they deployed a massive naval force in the Red Sea, and the Houthis ran their massive naval force the hell out of the Red Sea. Number one, and let me add this. Is that really a massive naval force against a country the size of Venezuela? I mean, a massive naval force is relative, right? A massive naval force, if you're fighting, I don't know, Liechtenstein, whatever the hell, you know what I mean? Some, a country, Monaco, I don't know, whatever the hell, right? If you're fighting a tiny little country, Bahrain, yeah, that's a massive naval force. But as it says, a massive naval force, 8 warships and a nuclear submarine, dude, that ain't nothing against this country the size of Venezuela. The USS Gerald Ford. Okay, so you're going to send one aircraft carrier, and a couple of dozen planes in Puerto Rico or something. That It may be enough to attack Caracas, but not the country. A city maybe, but even then. So what we're seeing is a massive naval force, but it's not massive relative to the size of the country. It ain't. It's a naval force. And let me add this. One of the things that we found in the world of missiles now, right? Because here's what we have to say. Let's just say the US and Russia went at it. Okay, we've surrounded Russia with bases. Well, in theory, yes. In reality, if the US and Russia went to war today, I will guarantee you this. There's a handful of Oreshniks aimed at every one of those bases. So my point is, on the very first day of the war, I wouldn't want to be on one of those bases because you're going to die. If the United States attacked Iran, their short-range missiles can hit most of our bases and short and intermediate range, right? So it's like, yes, we've got Iran surrounded with bases, but it ain't going to be a pleasant day to be on those bases. Okay, the U.S. goes to war with China, and we got bases in China. You know the numbers. China probably got millions of missiles. I saw one factory that made 1,000 missiles a day in 12 days. And what do we have? 4,000 Tomahawk missiles? That's 4 days. 4 days. For that one factory. That ain't the only factory. They got millions of factories. I mean, not millions, but a lot of factories. So they can make probably 10,000 or more missiles a day. Do we really want? So what happens? Here's my point. Oh, we've got all these bases surrounding China. Okay, you go to war with China on day one and they put 1,000 missiles on every base at 8 o'clock in the morning. And 10 o'clock in the morning, they hit 1,000 missiles on every base. And every 2 hours for a week, they put 1,000 missiles on every single base until you don't have anything on that base bigger than a quarter. You see what I'm saying? So my point is, any way you look at it, the bases that were in the past military points of strength are now fat targets, and they're military points of vulnerability. Okay. So now that you got a bunch of warships around, well, you know, they got Su-30s that can hold some pretty nasty missiles. So yes, the Su-30s, I mean, yes, these are powerful warships, but they're large and they're vulnerable. And you better keep them a long damn way away from the Venezuelan coast. And they're too close as it is. And if they decide, okay, we're going after these things, it could go so bad. It could go so. What happens if all the ships get sunk? You don't know. You had trouble with Yemen. What happens if your planes get shot down? What happens if you punch it? Venezuela. Okay, we're going to fly some missions and bomb them, and some of your planes get shot down. All right, we're going to send some ships, and we're going to fire missiles, and some of your shit, they fire back, and some of your missiles. Has the potential for disaster. And then you're in a war with Venezuela. How do you get out of that one? How do you keep fighting it? Oh, by the way, you're in war here, there, everywhere. So, anyway, I'm guessing now Trump might have backed down. We'll see on this one. We'll see. I'm guessing Trump might have backed down. The evidence suggests, I love that word, suggests the possibility. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Make sure you share this on all your social media platforms. Don't forget, we got Patreon. I thank all my Patreon people. We got PayPal. We got Buy Me a Coffee and Cash App. And there's my P.O. box in case you want to mail something, whether it's a letter or a book, or I got books, I got letters, I got all kinds of stuff that people mail in. And of course, you can mail a donation. And y'all know I'm all heading to out of the country to Moscow for 10 days next on the 6th. As a result, might I add, of donations. You know, Scott Ritter and I said, hey, can you do some donations for help a poor guy named Garland fly to Moscow? And what do you know? People actually did donations and paid for the tickets and all that kind of stuff. Isn't that awesome? Thanks a lot, everybody. And if you want to donate a couple extra spending pennies for Garland, it would be helpful. But don't worry about it if you don't have it or not. It would be great. But if you don't, the most important thing you can do is share this on all your social media platforms. I'm out.